The defiance of destiny. The vast emptiness of space stretched before the viewport of the UES Defiant, humanity's most advanced warship and the pride of the United Earth Fleet. Captain Ilara Chen stood with her hands clasped behind her back, her posture rigid as she surveyed the stars. 20 years of service had earned her a reputation as the Razor, sharp, precise, and capable of cutting through any situation with tactical brilliance. "Captain, we're picking up unusual energy signatures from the Ta City colony," Lieutenant Commander Raj Patel reported from his station. "They're not responding to hails." Chen's dark eyes narrowed. Ta City was humanity's furthest outpost, a scientific colony of 15,000 souls, studying the unique biosphere of the system's fourth planet. How long since their last scheduled contact? 48 hours, Captain. Communications Officer Maya Okafor replied. Their automated beacons are still transmitting, but no human response. Chen nodded once. Set course for Ta City, maximum speed. Alert medical and security to prepare for potential rescue operations. The Defiant's quantum engines hummed to life, propelling the ship into FTL travel. Chen retreated to her ready room, pulling up the colony's latest reports. Nothing unusual, until she noticed a brief mention of strange lights observed beyond the system's heliosphere 3 days ago. 6 hours later, the Defiant dropped out of FTL at the edge of the Ta City system. What greeted them wasn't the bustling colony they expected, but a scene of methodical destruction. The orbital platforms were intact but dark. The colony's main structures stood undamaged, but scans showed no human life signs. What the hell happened here? Executive Officer Commander Diana Walsh whispered, her usual stoicism cracking. Scan for any signs of weapons discharge, Chen ordered, her voice betraying no emotion though her fingers gripped the command chair's armrests until her knuckles whitened. That's the thing, Captain, the science officer replied. There's no evidence of bombardment or conventional attack. It's as if everyone just disappeared. A sudden alert blared from the tactical station. Captain, 3 vessels just appeared on our sensors. They weren't there a second ago. No FTL signature, no distortion field. They just manifested. The view screen shifted to show 3 ships unlike any Chen had encountered. They were crystalline in appearance, their hulls seeming to shift and flow like liquid metal caught in sunlight, geometric patterns pulsing with internal light. Hail them, Chen ordered. Before Okafor could comply, the ship's systems flickered, and a voice filled the bridge, not coming through the speakers, but seemingly emanating from the air itself. Species designation, human. Vessel classification, military. Purpose, intervention. Status, unauthorized. The voice was neither male nor female, its tones precise and modulated in a way that felt both ancient and impossibly advanced. This is Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth ship Defiant. Identify yourself and your intentions toward the Ta City colony. A pause, as if the entity were considering her demand worthy of response. We are the consortium. We have enacted Protocol 7 Alpha on this settlement. Explain Protocol 7 Alpha, Chen demanded, signaling Walsh to quietly ready weapons. Evaluation and extraction. This species outpost demonstrated level 3 deviation from predicted development patterns. The inhabitants have been removed for assessment. Chen's blood ran cold. Removed? Where are our people? They are undergoing evaluation. Their fate will be determined by their compliance with consortium standards. Return them immediately, Chen said, rising from her chair. They are under Earth's protection. Protection is irrelevant. The consortium determines species viability in this sector. Humanity's scheduled assessment has been accelerated due to your unexpected arrival. The tactical officer's console suddenly flashed red. Captain, they're scanning us. Deeply. They're bypassing all our security protocols, accessing our databases. Shields up. Cut all network access to ship's core systems. Chen barked. Too late. the consortium voice stated. Assessment complete. Human military response predictable. Tactical capabilities below threshold. Determination. Species fails preliminary evaluation. The 3 alien vessels began to glow more intensely, their geometric patterns accelerating in rhythm. They're charging weapons. The tactical officer shouted. Evasive maneuvers. Return fire. All batteries. Chen commanded. The Defiant lurched as it broke formation, narrowly avoiding the first energy pulse from the lead consortium vessel. The human ship's rail guns and plasma cannons fired in response, but the shots seemed to pass through the crystalline ships as if they were mirages. Direct hits, but no damage registered, Tactical reported. It's like shooting at ghosts. Chen's mind raced. If conventional weapons wouldn't work, Raj, what frequency are their hulls vibrating at? The science officer worked his console frantically. Multiple bands, Captain, but primarily in the quantum resonance spectrum between 18.7 and 19.2 terahertz. Reconfigure our shields to emit a counterphased pulse at those frequencies. Then load quantum torpedoes with the same resonance pattern. Walsh looked at her. That's experimental tech, Captain. We've never field tested it. And we never will have a better opportunity, Chen replied. Do it. As the Defiant continued its evasive dance, narrowly avoiding the consortium's energy weapons, the crew worked frantically to implement Chen's orders. Another blast grazed their port side, causing systems to fluctuate. Counterphase ready, Captain, Raj announced. Torpedoes modified. Fire sequence Alpha, Chen ordered. The Defiant unleashed its modified torpedoes. At first, it appeared they would pass through the alien vessels, just as the conventional weapons had, but as they reached the crystalline hulls, they suddenly slowed, as if moving through thick liquid. Then they detonated. The lead consortium ship shuddered, its flowing patterns stuttering like a skipping record. Actual damage. It's working, Walsh exclaimed. Their hull integrity is compromising where the counterphase is in effect. The consortium vessels immediately changed tactics, moving to surround the Defiant. We have underestimated your adaptability. The consortium voice returned, now with a hint of what might be surprise. This deviation from predicted behavior patterns warrants further study. You'll find humans are full of surprises, Chen replied. Now return our colonists. The specimens cannot be returned until evaluation is complete. Your resistance is noted but futile. The consortium has judged thousands of species across 12 galaxies. None have successfully opposed final judgment. The alien ships began a new attack pattern, coordinating their fire from multiple angles. The Defiant's shields flared under the assault. Shields at 64% and dropping, Tactical reported. We can't maintain the counterphase under this level of attack. Chen studied the tactical display, noting how the consortium ships moved in perfect synchronization. Too perfect, like they were operating from a single mind. Target the lead ship's central node, that structure that looks like a crystalline lattice. Concentrate all firepower there. The Defiant's weapons concentrated on the designated target. For agonizing seconds, it seemed to have no effect. Then suddenly, the lattice structure fragmented. Immediately, the coordination between the 3 ships faltered. Their movements are becoming erratic, Walsh observed. I think you hit their command and control system. Press the advantage. All weapons, continuous fire on that ship. The damaged consortium vessel began to lose its cohesion, its flowing hull patterns becoming chaotic. Suddenly, it emitted a pulse of blinding light and disappeared, not destroyed, but simply gone, as if it had phased out of their reality. The remaining 2 vessels immediately ceased their attack and retreated to a defensive position. An unexpected outcome, the consortium voice stated, now coming only from the 2 remaining ships. Your species possesses greater adaptive capability than our models predicted. A full reassessment is required. No, Chen replied firmly. What's required is the immediate return of our people and an end to your evaluations. Humanity isn't a specimen to be studied. We're not subject to your judgment. All species are subject to consortium protocols. This has been the way for 100,000 years. Your defiance is noted but changes nothing. You have merely delayed the inevitable. Where is your base of operations? Chen demanded. Where have you taken our people? A pause, as if the consortium were calculating the risk of providing this information. The central evaluation nexus orbits the star you designate HD 40,307. The human specimens are there, undergoing assessment. Their fate, and that of your species, will be determined within one planetary rotation. With that, the remaining consortium vessels pulsed with light and vanished, leaving the Defiant alone above the empty colony. The bridge was silent for several seconds before Walsh spoke. Captain, HD 40,307 is 42 light-years from here. Even at maximum FTL, we can't reach it in less than 3 days. Then we'd better get started, Chen replied, her eyes still fixed on the spot where the alien ships had been. And alert Earth Command. Tell them humanity is on trial, and we need every ship we can muster. As the Defiant prepared to jump to FTL, Chen retreated to her ready room. She pulled up the limited data they had gathered on the consortium vessels, searching for any weakness they could exploit. The fate of not just the Ta City colonists, but potentially all of humanity, now rested on her ability to defy the judgment of beings who had appointed themselves the arbiters of galactic life. Assessment and evaluation, she muttered to herself. Well, two can play at that game. Chen initiated a ship-wide announcement. All hands, this is the captain. What we've encountered today is unlike anything humanity has faced before. A species called the Consortium has taken our people and claims the right to judge whether we deserve to exist. They've done this to thousands of species before us. She paused, letting the gravity of her next words settle. We're going to show them why that was a mistake. Prepare for extended combat operations. Defiant out. With renewed determination, Chen returned to the bridge as the stars stretched into lines of light around them. The Defiant leaped into the darkness, carrying humanity's defiance toward a confrontation that would determine the future of their species. The trial of humanity. 3 days of maximum FTL travel had pushed the UEA's Defiant's engines beyond recommended tolerances. Engineering reported microfractures in the quantum containment field and energy reserves at 42%, but Captain Ilara Chen had refused to reduce speed. Every hour mattered when 15,000 lives hung in the balance. Approaching HD 40,307 system, Captain, Lieutenant Commander Patil announced. Dropping out of FTL in 30 seconds. Chen nodded, her face showing the strain of days without proper rest. Battle stations, all hands ready for immediate engagement. The view screen showed the streaked stars returning to their normal pinpoint appearance as the Defiant decelerated. What materialized before them stole the breath from every officer on the bridge. Orbiting the orange dwarf star was a structure that defied comprehension, a vast lattice of interconnected crystalline platforms stretching across thousands of kilometers. It shimmered with the same flowing patterns they had seen on the consortium vessels, but on a scale that made the Defiant seem like a dust mote in comparison. My God, Commander Walsh whispered, it's like a Dyson web. Life signs? Chen asked, her voice steady despite the overwhelming sight. Scanning, Raj replied, his fingers dancing across his console. Captain, I'm reading. Thousands of different species, biological signatures across the spectrum. And yes, human life signs. All 15,000 colonists appear to be held in one section of the structure. What about consortium ships? At least 50 vessels similar to those we encountered, docked at various points across the structure. Chen studied the tactical display, noting the distribution of forces. Even if the reinforcements from Earth arrived as scheduled, they would be hopelessly outmatched. This would require something beyond conventional tactics. Open a channel, she ordered. Broadcast on all frequencies. Channel open, Captain. Chen stood, straightening her uniform. This is Captain Ilara Chen of the United Earth ship Defiant. I have come for the return of our people and to represent humanity before your consortium. I request parley under the universal principles of diplomatic exchange." For long moments, there was no response. Then, a familiar voice filled the bridge. "Captain Ilara Chen, your arrival was predicted with 97.3% accuracy. Your request for parley was not. This represents another deviation from expected behavior patterns." "I'm full of surprises," Shen replied dryly. "Will you grant the parley? Your presence is required for the final evaluation phase. You will be permitted to dock at coordinates being transmitted to your vessel. You may bring 3 representatives. Weapons are irrelevant, and therefore not prohibited." Chen raised an eyebrow at that last statement. Either supreme confidence or foolishness. She hoped the latter. "Acknowledged. We will dock shortly." Defiant out. She turned to her officers. "Walsh, Raj with me. Dr. Khatri, you too. I want a medical perspective on what they've done to our people. Lieutenant Okafor, you have the con. If we're not back in 3 hours, or if the reinforcements arrive, you're authorized to attempt extraction by any means necessary." "Understood, Captain," Okafor replied soberly. "Good luck." The Defiant approached the designated docking point, a crystalline platform extending from the main structure. As they neared, an opening appeared, perfectly sized for their shuttle. 20 minutes later, Chen and her team stood in what appeared to be an enormous amphitheater. The circular space was ringed with thousands of crystalline pedestals, each occupied by beings of wildly different physiologies. Some were vaguely humanoid, others utterly alien, gaseous forms contained in special environments, energy beings pulsing with light, multi-limbed creatures that seemed to shift between solid and liquid states. At the center of the amphitheater was a raised dais where 7 tall, luminous beings stood in formation. Unlike the various aliens observing from the periphery, these entities appeared almost human, save for their opalescent skin and eyes that contained swirling galaxies. "The Arbiters," a voice announced from nowhere. "You stand before the Consortium Judgment Council. Your species evaluation will now commence." Chen stepped forward. "Before these proceedings begin, I demand to see our people and confirm their condition." The Central Arbiter, taller than the others, made a gesture with a 6-fingered hand. A portion of the floor became transparent, revealing a vast chamber below where humans were housed in individual crystalline cells, each person suspended in some kind of field. Dr. Khatri quickly scanned the visible humans with her medical tricorder. "They're alive, Captain. In some kind of stasis. Physically unharmed as far as I can tell." Chen nodded her thanks, then addressed the Arbiters. "Release them. They've done nothing to warrant this treatment. All specimens are maintained in optimal condition during evaluation," the lead Arbiter replied. "The process requires direct neural assessment, which would be traumatic if experienced consciously." "You're scanning their minds?" Chen asked, anger edging into her voice. "We extract full species data, cultural patterns, technological development trajectories, conflict resolution methodologies, environmental management practices, and potential for further evolution. This data determines species classification." "And what are the classifications?" Walsh asked. "Beneficial, neutral, or disruptive," the Arbiter replied. "Those deemed beneficial are granted access to Consortium knowledge and protection. Those classified neutral are permitted continued existence under observation. Those evaluated as disruptive are contained or removed." "Removed," Chen repeated flatly. "You mean exterminated." "The term is imprecise but functionally adequate," another Arbiter acknowledged. "Species determined to represent a future threat to galactic stability must be addressed before they achieve the capability to cause significant disruption." Chen looked around at the gathered aliens, noting how many appeared to watch with what might be sympathy in their alien features. "How many species have you removed in your history?" 4,217 species have been determined disruptive in the past 100,000 standard years. The sacrifice of the few ensures the continued flourishing of the many. This is the foundation of consortium philosophy. Chen stepped closer to the dais, her voice carrying throughout the amphitheater. And who judged the judges? Who determined that you have the right to decide which species lives and which dies? A murmur ran through the watching aliens, translated into a susurration of clicks, hums, and other sounds. The consortium emerged from the first species, who achieved intelligence 5 billion years ago. The lead arbiter stated, "We have guided galactic evolution since before your sun formed. Our right comes from our understanding of the cosmic pattern, the optimal path of development that ensures maximum diversity and stability." Chen shook her head. "No, your right comes from your superior technology and nothing more. You're not gods. You're not even morally superior beings. You're just bullies with better weapons." The arbiter's luminescence flickered in what might have been surprise or anger. "Your species demonstrates the precise emotional irrationality our models predicted," one stated. "This confirms our preliminary classification. Humans are trending toward disruptive with 89.7% probability. Your development of quantum resonance weapons, despite your relatively primitive technological state, indicates an aggressive advancement pattern consistent with previous disruptive species. We developed those weapons for defense," Raj protested. "Humanity has never initiated conflict with another spacefaring species. Future behavior is predictable based on established patterns," an arbiter countered. "The preliminary data extraction from the colony specimens confirms aggressive territorial expansion and resource competition, even among your own kind. These traits, when extended to interspecies relations, invariably lead to conflict." Chen had been watching the alien observers during this exchange. She noticed something interesting. Many seemed to be paying more attention to her team's reactions than to the arbiter's pronouncements. Some were even making what might be their species' equivalent of eye contact, as if trying to communicate something. "You know," she said, loud enough for all to hear, "I find it interesting that with all your supposed advanced understanding, you're making the same mistake countless failed empires on Earth made." "Specify the error in our methodology," the lead arbiter demanded. "You believe uniformity leads to stability. That by controlling which species are allowed to develop and how, you're creating some perfect ordered galaxy. But life, real, vibrant, evolving life, thrives on diversity and even conflict. It's messy and unpredictable, and that's its strength." Chen began to walk in a circle, addressing the watching aliens rather than the arbiters. "I wonder how many of your beneficial and neutral species actually agree with your methods. How many are here not because they believe in your judgments, but because they fear being the next to be classified as disruptive?" The amphitheater grew utterly silent. "Captain Chen," the lead arbiter said, its voice now carrying a note of warning, "your attempts to incite dissension are noted and factored into your species evaluation." "I'm not inciting anything," Chen replied. "I'm just asking questions that should have been asked long ago. Like, have any of you ever challenged a consortium classification? Have any of you ever demanded to see the data models they use to predict which species deserve to live and which deserve to die?" "This is not a debate forum," the arbiter stated firmly. "The evaluation process follows established protocols." "Protocols established by you, for your benefit," Chen countered. "Tell me, how many species have you classified as disruptive simply because they questioned your authority? How many potential allies have you destroyed because they represented a challenge to your control rather than a true threat to galactic stability?" A new murmur ran through the observers, louder this time. Chen noticed some of the aliens were now openly communicating with each other. One being, a tall insectoid creature with iridescent wings, rose from its pedestal. The human raises valid queries. It said in a melodious voice, "The Tlaxi Confederation has long harbored concerns about evaluation methodology. We request access to the predictive models used for the human assessment." The arbiter's luminescence pulsed rapidly. "The Tlaxi representative will refrain from interference. The models are consortium proprietary constructs. Another alien rose. This one a massive gelatinous entity that glowed from within. The Morith Collective seconds the request. Transparency would resolve long-standing concerns about evaluation criteria. Order will be maintained. The lead arbiter commanded, but more aliens were standing now, adding their voices to the growing chorus of dissent. Chen exchanged glances with her team. This was developing better than she could have hoped. It appears, she said loudly enough to cut through the rising clamor, that humanity isn't the only species with concerns about your methods. Perhaps it's time for a different kind of evaluation, one of the consortium itself. The lead arbiter raised its arms, and a pulse of energy rippled through the amphitheater. This disruption confirms our assessment. The human species demonstrates an exceptional capacity to foster discord even among stable civilizations. Or perhaps, Chen replied, unfazed by the display, we just asked the questions everyone has been too afraid to ask. That's not disruption. That's progress. Suddenly, alarms began to sound throughout the structure. One of the arbiters moved quickly to a control interface. Multiple vessels approaching, it reported. Identified as human military ships, they have bypassed our outer sensor network. Chen smiled. The reinforcements had arrived ahead of schedule. It seems humanity has more surprises for you. The lead arbiter's galaxy-filled eyes fixed on Chen. You planned this convergence of events. Your request for parley was a distraction. Not a distraction, Chen corrected. An opportunity. For all of us. You claim to value galactic stability, but true stability comes from cooperation and mutual respect, not from fear and control. The species gathered here deserve better than to live under your judgment. The insectoid galaxy representative moved closer to Chen. The human speaks wisdom that many have long felt but feared to express. Perhaps it is time for a new consortium, one where all spacefaring species have voice in determining galactic protocols. The arbiters conferred silently among themselves, their luminescence pulsing in complex patterns. Finally, the lead arbiter addressed the assembly. For 100,000 years, the consortium has maintained order. We have prevented countless wars, preserved thousands of species, and guided galactic development along optimal paths. Yet it appears our methods may require reassessment. A ripple of surprise moved through the gathered aliens. The human species will be provisionally classified as neutral, pending further evaluation under revised protocols. The colonists will be revived and returned. And the arbiter seemed to struggle with this last concession. We will establish a council of species to review consortium methodology. Chen nodded, knowing this was the best outcome they could hope for today. The real battle, to reform the consortium and end its unilateral power over galactic life, would take time. But they had won something precious, the right to fight that battle at all. That's a start, she said. Now, about our people. As the crystalline cells below began to deactivate, releasing the human colonists from stasis, Chen's communicator chirped. It was the Defiant. Captain, Earth fleet has arrived. 8 ships, including the dreadnought Resolute. They're holding position outside weapons range and awaiting your orders. Tell them to maintain position but stand down from combat footing, Chen replied. We've reached a preliminary agreement. She looked up at the lead arbiter, whose luminescent form seemed somehow diminished. Your consortium has existed for 100,000 years. Impressive. Humanity has only been traveling among the stars for less than a century. Yet today we've changed the course of galactic history. Imagine what we might accomplish as partners rather than specimens. The arbiter regarded her with those galaxy-filled eyes. You are indeed an unpredictable species, Captain Chen. Perhaps that is not entirely a disadvantage for the future of our galaxy. As the first freed colonists began to enter the amphitheater, confused but unharmed, Chen allowed herself a small smile. Humanity had faced its trial and emerged not just victorious but transformative. The consortium had sought to judge whether humans deserved a place in the galaxy. Instead, humans had shown them a new way forward for all species. The Defiance Protocol, her unauthorized mission to challenge the unchallengeable, had succeeded beyond all expectations. And the message was clear. Humanity would forge its own destiny among the stars, not as subjects to be judged, but as equal participants in the grand cosmic community. Not unpredictable, Chen corrected the Arbiter as she prepared to escort her people home. Just unwilling to accept limitations imposed by others. That's the human way.